My name is Zehra Gabillon. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of French Polynesian, as you all know. I'm specialized in applied linguistics, second and foreign language acquisition and learning, and I am the member of the research unit ISCO. Today, I will present a study which investigated learner involvement in 11 elementary school classrooms, learner involvement in English language. And here is the outline about what I'm going to present. First, I will briefly state the objectives, and then I will talk about the background to the study, especially two projects which helped us gather the corpus for our study. And then I'll give you a brief overview of the study, not everything because we do not have enough time today. And then I'll complete my speech with a short conclusion. All right, here we go. As I mentioned earlier, the aim of the study is to explore, investigate learner involvement in language classroom, in EFL classrooms, in elementary school context in French Polynesian. And to do so, I investigated teacher talking time, learner talking time, and the activities which favor learner contribution. The corpora for this study were gathered via two projects and from 5 different French Polynesian, from all 5 French Polynesian archipelagos. One of the project was called PrEEPP, Teachers and Parents Educational Practices in French Polynesia. This was a vast project, took place between 2014 and 2017, and the primary aim of the project was to gather corpora on educational practices. This project was financed by different organisms, and one of the financiers was the Ministry of Overseas, France. The second project was a modest project. We didn't do a lot of work there. The aim of this project was the creation of a plurilingual learning environment in Maeha'a Nui Elementary School. And one of my lessons come from this school. It was a clear lesson. I integrated to the data obtained from the other project as well. Just to give you an idea where the corpus came from, here is the map of French Polynesia. Voilà. 3 lessons that I evaluated came from Society Islands. The other 3 from Tuamotu Archipelago, 2 from Marquesas, 2 from Austral Islands, and 1 from Gambia. The theoretical stance. Now you will be very happy because most of you use these 2 theoretical standpoints in your MA thesis. The first theoretical viewpoint is, here it comes, interactionist perspective. Most of you use this perspective. The second one is sociocultural perspective. Why these two theoretical standpoints? These two theoretical standpoints emphasize the importance of face-to-face interaction and communication. They both share the same key principles: primacy of interaction, help given from the others, learning from each other, and that language development can only occur in a social context. And it is both individual, cognitive, and social and collaborative. So these are the standpoints I used for my research. Methodology, simply said, this was a discourse analysis research, period. It is qualitative and quantitative at the same time. And for this study, the participants were 11 primary school teachers, elementary school teachers, from 5 different French Polynesian archipelagos. And we selected the teachers based on the year of experience they had in teaching. We avoided selecting teachers who were novice teachers or inexperienced teachers, and also avoided teachers who approached the retirement age. So that was the criteria. And altogether, 218 students participated in our study. So I've already mentioned that we gathered some corpora, and the corpora were gathered using video recordings, but not only. Although we used the video recordings, we supplemented the video recordings with audio recordings in order to lose any data. Because later on, we transcribed all the data we obtained using verbatim transcriptions, you all know. So everything people said, we transcribed word by word. And we also use Jefferson's transcription notation to mention different aspects of our transcriptions, comment, nonverbal elements, etc. Here is the overall information about the participants and the data and the recordings. When you look at the first column, you see the number of the lesson. Second column gives information about the number of the participants, teachers, and also their gender. Column 3, you see the number of the participant students in each classroom, and also the total number of the participants, duration of each recording per lesson, plus people's age, their grade levels, the island the recording was taken from, and the date of the recordings. To analyze my data, I use a software which is called ATLAS.ti. It is a qualitative data analysis software which is very performing in this type of data analysis. I analyze my data using coding. After I enter the transcriptions on the software, I used open coding, which means I coded every single turn according to its function. I went through all 11 lessons. Then I regrouped the codes using axial coding. And then I selected codes which were relevant to the topic that I was investigating using selective coding. I used quantitative data just for the presentation because it's sometimes easier to present bulk of data in a more condensed way when you use histograms, tables, etc. I also use abstracts taken directly from the transcriptions. Well, as I said, we have very limited time here, so I cannot present all the results that I obtained from the research. I will try to give you an overview of the results by using a little bit of histograms and abstracts. Have a look at this histogram. Look at this figure. This gives the number of the duration of each recording per lesson and the number of interactions. A simple look at the histogram shows that in a very short period of time there were a lot of interactions. Look at the number above. So this implies something. This means that the interaction happened in the classroom were very short interactions, 1 or 2 word turns. Considering language learning, this is meaningful for us. Have a look at the second figure. As I said earlier, my aim was investigating learner involvement. In order to investigate learner involvement, we've got to look at teacher talking time and learner talking time. Have a look at the chart over there. When you see that all over the place, teacher talking time towers learner talking time. Except, I wonder if you have noticed, this little lesson here, which was based on group work. We see that there is an increase in student talking time. Before I go to the next slide, I have something to say. So, a lot of teacher talking time, well, fewer student talking time, a lot of interactions, short, brings us to short chunks of interactions between the teacher and the students, which we call IRF interactions. And what is that? Have a look at it. So, it's gone. Right, have a look at this. This is an extract taken, just a small one, from one of my transcriptions. It represents an example for an IRF interaction. That means teacher-initiated interaction, learner response, and teacher's feedback, positive or negative. And most of the time, it's good, very good, or is it correct? Do you see what I mean? IRF interactions. Here we have a mechanical drill, repetition drill, done by a whole class, and which doesn't require very high cognitive involvement. If I ask you to repeat something, you don't have to think a lot. You do what I say. Right. As I said earlier, My measure was also based on cognitive involvement, which shows that not very high here. So this is a good example for an IRF pattern. You can have an idea how I analyze the function of each interaction. We see that, what is that? Yes, but you do not know what was before. Before a student gives an answer, and the teacher asks the question to the others to repeat. Yeah? So it looks as if the teacher's really asking a real question, but it was not the case. It was just teacher asking the others to repeat the correct answer. Are you with me? Yeah. And we have an unclear speech that we cannot hear. And the teacher asks students to repeat, and the learners repeat. There is teacher feedback, not direct, a kind of recast. Teacher says slipper, correcting the pronunciation. This is a typical activity for low cognitive engagement. Simple repetition type of activity. Of course, there are different kind of IRF activities. This is only one. This is a repetition activity. We have also repetition, reciting, which is not very different from repetition, and short question and answer, which require a little bit more cognitive engagement. I move to the other one. So this is a good example. This what I have analyzed one by one, all 11 lessons. We see that majority of the lessons used repetition drills, reciting. What is your name? How are you? I'm okay. Yeah? Simple recitation type of activities. And short question of question and answer type. What is this? It's a pen. So these are called IRF, and these activities are used in a lot of lessons I observed. And we all know that cognitive engagement is very low in these activities. Let's have a look at this. Especially lesson 9. So lesson 9 is a good example of IRF. A lesson was based on IRF if you look at the interactions, repetition and reciting basically. When you look at the total responses and the other two complementary. Well, I also measured activities which required more engagement from the learner. And we see that lesson 1, very poor in cognitive engagement or repetition or recitation type of activities. Same for lesson 2, 3, etc. Let's have a look at what I have prepared for you. And we see that lesson 7 and lesson 5 favored learners' participation and cognitive engagement more than the others, because students could give feedback, give explanations to each other. They used language more freely than in other lessons. Well, now I've got to wrap up and finish, and then you will ask questions. There will be a very short conclusion, but I think I have already said what I should say during the conclusion part. All right. So, my conclusion, but this is not typical to primary schools or French Polynesia. In general, when you observe a lot of classrooms, these are the patterns that you see all around the world. But we are here to change. You're going to be future teachers. So here, conclusion. The learners were primarily provided with IRF interactions, short chunks of interactions in the classroom. The majority of the exchanges were in the form of simple repetition, recitations, or simple question and answer. A lot of people might ask, but is there another way for students at primary school to learn? They do not know English. Yes, there are. But it's not the topic of our discussion today. Yes, there are a lot of ways for them to be cognitively engaged and really use the language and learn. Well, the lessons that I observed some group work activities, but they were done, students were given tasks to complete in a more traditional way, like completing an exercise, etc. Except for one, which was really students were doing the whole activity on their own, which was amazing to see. Well, that's all I can say about my study. I only gave you the little bit of it. Now I'm waiting for your questions. Feel free to ask any questions that you feel like asking, even if you think that perhaps it's not directly relevant. And I will try to answer them if I know the answer. Right, here we are. Any questions? By the way, I cannot see you. Yeah? Any questions? I know that. Oops, I don't have my glasses here. Yes. Any questions? Anything confusing? Or yes, Paul.
Well, I saw in your histograms and charts that some lessons were better or new.
We do not use the word better, actually, but yes, yeah?
Well, I mean, the results were more relevant in terms of murders involvement.
Yeah.
Was it because of the type of activities that
yes.
were suggested?
Exactly. It was directly linked to the type of activities teachers used in the classrooms. Yeah. Normally, a well-organized group work activity can provide a lot of learner engagement. In one of the classrooms that I observed, learners did the whole task. The activity was not very different from what teachers could do, but the learners did the activity on their own. They were provided with a box of mathematical operations. They just took from the box one by one, and they did it themselves. And the thing, I observed a lot of peer correction during that activity. When the pupils used the wrong number, the other peer corrected, they asked questions to each other, they volunteered to answer, and the teacher was not even in the scene. We did not record the teacher. The teacher was dealing with another group, and the learners were working alone. There is, if you try a little bit, there are possibilities of doing very useful group work where students really feel responsible, yeah. But tasks should be given in such a way that the learners should feel that they should contribute. Any more questions? Yes, Paul.
And in terms of activities, did you have like a predominant type of activities?
Yes, IRF. that was not activity, but interactions. But what we mean by IRF is not really activity, but whole class sort of frontal teaching. It is a kind of classroom activity, if you take it that way, but not in the sense that we teach you. That teacher asks something, a learner responds to it, and the teacher gives feedback. You all know, perhaps, I'm not saying that it is bad. I'm just, in a classroom, we have a room for that kind of activities as well, but not predominantly using those type of activities from the beginning until the end. We do not recommend about who we are then. Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you actually mean activities or skills? Were you thinking in terms of listening and speaking?
I think I was thinking of both.
Both. I think your study is very interesting. Have you ever thought of doing the same with secondary school
Of
students?
course, yeah.
And would you have the same hypothesis?
My hypothesis changes all the time. What I do is I always analyze my transcriptions without having any prejudgment. And I focus on items depending on what I discover. It is based on grounded theory. I cannot judge what I have obtained until I complete everything. And depending on what I have discovered, I focused, this is interesting to present. This is what I have discovered. When I started this activity, when I started this study, sorry for the slip, I did not say that I was going to investigate, but it came from the results. But in the end, it came as the focus of this study, because when I noticed some patterns regarding learner involvement, I said that I should look into this further, and that's how this study came out. I have, just to give you an idea, perhaps I can give you an idea the extent of the analysis, and I'll finish then quickly. If I can manage, I don't know. This is one of it. Let's see how it is done. Let's have a look at this. This is how it goes. You've got to analyze everything one by one, and until then, you don't have to say anything. When you look at the patterns, you look at what you have observed, and you also consider the non-verbal pronunciation. It's hard work. There is one here who followed the same thing. Yeah, I've seen his transcriptions. Excellent. So this is hard work, but it is work. Any other questions?
Maybe just a echo to share our questions. It's about the second part of your conclusion. Talk about limited time with real exchange situations, real life exchanges, and also you talk about limited group working activities.
Yes.
So maybe it's not only connected with the language.
No.
It's,
No.
there is a question of initial training also, the training of the teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure we can find it in math or in French or in history.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the whole. Actually, we say that pendulum swings. When you look at these frontal teaching, when the language learning in the 60s, people favored IRF exchanges because we believed that that was the best way. Yeah, And we did a lot of work on army learning, they call it, audio learning, they call it. They are all the same things, actually. That simple repetitions, focusing on the pronunciation, but the context is not important, meaning is not important. Now we have seen that it doesn't work, pendulum swing. We try to contextualize, we try to build in the learners real life skills, what we call. That's why we use task-based learning. But whether we know what task-based learning is also another question. Yeah? And whether we can apply it fully in the classroom is another question as well. It's hard work to change. And especially my students and I, we came from that period. We observed our teachers doing repetitions and that kind of asking question and answer. Sometimes for some people it's more difficult to change the representations than actually learning what you should do. Any other questions? We've got to finish because we have 2 videos to watch, 15 minutes each. Yeah, they are from Athens. Our Greek colleagues will present you 2 topics about science teaching. One is about science teaching and gender, and the other is about science teaching as well.